The fact is, we don't always see the good, even when it's right in front of us, even when we're living in it. Welcome back to the Humaning Well podcast. My name is Amber Cabral, and we are at the 5th and final part of the Getting Grounded capsule series that is a part of the Humaning Well podcast. And I feel like this has been a pretty life-changing series. I realized earlier this week, like Monday of this week, the content is like going very, very viral on YouTube. So I'm excited for you to be here. A lot of you are probably new. Thank you for joining me for this episode. This is the final in this capsule, and then we're going to talk about some other things in the next episode. But this episode is about intentionally seeing the good. Okay, so let me share a little bit about how I came to this. When people ask me, how did you feel when you were working in corporate, or why did you leave corporate? My response is always, I don't regret anything about working in corporate. I couldn't do what I do today if not for my experience in corporate. But let me also say, my time working in big corporate was not easy. It was not easy. I had some of the literally the worst leadership experiences. I had leaders with no integrity. I had leaders who would promise one thing and not deliver. I had leaders who had no backbone, so they wouldn't stand up to their leaders, passive leaders. I had leaders who were more concerned with being liked than being impactful. I had leaders who would try to make me feel small or make me shrink or make me feel like I was doing too much. I had leaders lie on me or try to make an example out of me. I had leaders who openly played favorite. I have had it all in corporate America. Okay. And I'm talking about full on grown people who were older than me. And, it was painful. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe you have some good colleagues. No, I had some interesting colleagues as well. I had colleagues who competed with me. I had colleagues who would lie on me. I had colleagues who would try to use me for things or try to use me to get ahead, try to use my relationships. I had colleagues try to take credit for my work, even though they were making double my salary. Yeah. And speaking of salary, at one point I spent it was about somewhere between 9 or 10 months working to address a pay equity issue. So what had happened was I was living in Atlanta, and when you live away from where the home office is, they give you this calculation to say, oh, the cost of the living there is higher. So here's the base salary, but because you live in this area, we give you this percentage more. So that percentage for me was 10%. Well, I ended up getting a promotion, and when I got that promotion, I got a raise. That raise was 10%, but the promotion also made me relocate to where the home office was, which took away the 10% I was getting for living in Atlanta. So essentially, I didn't get a raise. And in fact, I got a pay cut because the taxes were higher at the home office than they were in Atlanta. And so I ultimately was taking a loss, even though I got a bigger role and more responsibility and all of that stuff, because I took this title bump, basically. And so it took them 10 months, almost a year, to address it. And by the way, when it was finally addressed, the pay was not retroactive. I worked hard. I worked so hard, all the time when I was in corporate. I, always felt like I was just only moving inches. I always felt like I was super behind. I was always super frustrated with the politics. I feel like I spent a lot of energy trying to deliver with excellence, at every level that I knew how to do. And my performance appraisals were always exceeds, but there were so many undercurrents of things to navigate. And I felt like it was just part of the game, right? So I would prioritize delivering high quality work over eating, over sleeping, over being present in the relationship that I was in. And at that time, that's what seemed like it was, what was required of me. So my last corporate job was with Walmart. And when I left Walmart, I was over it. I was hurt. I was angry. I felt like I had done my absolute best. And I just didn't feel like I had gotten enough to show for it. Especially what really tipped the scales was when I found out that the way my last job was set up, it was shared with someone else. And I ended up finding out that she was making double what I was making and doing literally half the work. And so, it was I just really walked away feeling like my quality of work wasn't ever reflected in my paycheck. I wasn't really valued. And, it feels so wild because you know what they say, hindsight is 20/20, but also like, I just didn't know at the time how to look for the good in my experience. So I was always catching the bad. I was always catching the things that didn't go well. I was always catching the ways things weren't working out. I was always catching the ways that things just didn't feel equitable to me. And so now that I have the ability to look at the good, I'm able to see and admit that, like, if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't be here. I'm not sure that I was aware at the time. I know I wasn't. It's not even not sure. I know I wasn't. Like, that years long career growth sprint was spent very miserable and very frustrated and overworking and like, really pushing because that's what I felt like was necessary. But now, I have full clarity and I can see fully just some of the really incredible experiences that I had while I was in corporate that I just totally did not get at the time, that are unique, that like a lot of corporate folks that have been in corporations for years and years have never had. And I know that I got them because people did see the work I was doing. They did value what I had to contribute. And I just could not see the good at the time. And I'll give you a few examples. Like, my first ride on a private jet was because I was working in a corporation and had to travel with the head of HR. I got to build executive immersive leadership experiences to help improve the operations for the world's biggest company. I had the opportunity to build some really amazing relationships in the C-suite. And a lot of that informs how I coach leaders today. There's a lot of things that like were very unique experiences. I had a lot of very good relationships with a lot of very senior leaders. I spent a large amount of my corporate career in a position to influence and to support, just really even have my voice heard around some of the decision making with some of the most powerful leaders in the world at the time. I built custom programs for international mentees to, connect with the head of HR for the biggest company in the world. I mean, like, major things. I did major things. And living in it, I couldn't see any of that. But when I learned to look for the good, I could see that all of that hard work and those exceeds expectations actually did pay off, even though it wasn't necessarily with direct income. So looking at it all now, the fact is we don't always see the good, even when it's right in front of us, even when we're living in it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, cool, I rode on a private jet. I was still preoccupied with other things. Sometimes we're so fixed on the plan or the outcome that we can miss the gifts that are showing up in the ways that we didn't expect. Because if it wasn't packaged as a bonus, a pay raise, a title bump, I didn't see it. Okay. Back then, the only win I wanted was a bigger paycheck and a title change. And in reality, I was getting gold. I was getting gold that I would use to build a multi-million-dollar business. In this final episode of the Getting Grounded series, we have covered addressing exhaustion and overwhelm. We have covered learning how to have whatever you want. We have covered how to navigate shame. And now I want to make sure that you are getting the skills to know how to keep an eye out for the good when it doesn't necessarily show up how you want it. Because I didn't do that well. And I can look back now and go, oh, I had some good, okay? And that good helped me be where I am today. And I could have had a much more positive experience if I had the outlook that I have now. And so this episode is about the maintenance practice of choosing how you see the world. Survival mode, you're going to have that. It's loud. And also remember, neuroscience says that your brain is wired for survival. So it is naturally scanning for what is wrong all the time. That's just how our brains work. And so gratitude and optimism, those things, they can be kind of quiet, right? They have to be practiced. You have to intentionally invite them or you will miss them. So just like you can train your body by going to the gym or running or riding bikes and all of that stuff, you can also train your brain. And so you have to take some steps to do that. I also want to add that programming your mind so that you see the good is not like, I'm not trying to encourage toxic positivity. And you know what I mean by toxic positivity. Those people that is like, you could be falling out in grief. Everything is wrong. Lost your house, whatever. They're going to find something to be like, well, at least you're alive or something. Just, no matter what, it's all sunshine and rainbows. That is unhealthy. And like, candidly, I really struggle even being friends with those people. So I'm not trying to encourage you to have like this toxic positive mindset. Like notice the things that are tough. Like the things that I just listed at the top of this episode were tough and unfair and inequitable and unjust. But like I was so preoccupied with those, I didn't see the other things that were like, yo, this is dope, and that really could have gone a long way for me. And programming your mind is about being honest with yourself that not everything is bad. Not everything is bad, even though sometimes your brain is going to make it seem that way, right? The best way for us to really pull back and make sure that we're getting the good stuff is to scan for it. You get to choose to notice what's working. You get to choose to notice what's aligned, what made you smile. The big things, the small things, you get a choice on that. And so you have to practice that. And it can be simple things like the train was on time today. I had a friend check in on me and I really was happy to hear from them. I, had to have a tough conversation and I handled that conversation much better than I would have handled it, a couple of years ago. I'm doing a better job at managing and saving my money. Could be an example of it. I'm a much healthier eater. The last few months I've been eating really well, or I learned how good I am at my job. I got some really great accolades today, right? So simple things like that can come up when you make the decision, like, let me scan and see what's good. It can be simple stuff that's happening on a regular basis and we need to give our attention to that. So what does that look like for me? When I am looking for the good stuff, I ask myself intentionally, and honestly, I try to do this every day. I ask myself intentionally, usually at least twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. The two questions I ask are, what is good and what am I grateful for? And I just kind of make a mental run through. For everything that pops up, I take a moment and I internally just go, oh, that is good. I'm grateful for that. One that comes up very often for me is, I really love my home. I love my home. I love it. And so sometimes I'll just even say out loud, like, I am so grateful I get to live here. Everything is a little crazy right now. There's a lot happening, but I get to navigate all of that complexity from this beautiful little corner, of the world that is so, so, so nurturing for me. And so I'm super grateful for that. And so, that can be a way that you can make note of what is good. You wake up in the morning, you scan and go, what's good today? What am I grateful for? Do the same thing before you go to sleep. Now, here's the thing. When you're having a low day, and you know what that is, right? You didn't sleep well. You maybe beat yourself up all week. You're having a low day, a tough week, whatever. And we all have them. This is normal. You're never going to get away from that. And I know I say that a lot, but I want to emphasize that I am in no way living this charmed life where everything is perfect. I'm not. So when I have those days where I'm really low, and I have to intentionally get my brain to come back, right? Because when you're low, you're like, oh my God, everything is failing. I'm behind on everything. Do people even want to hear this podcast? Why am I even doing this, right? And if you've been listening to the pod, you've heard episodes that sounded like, hey, I'm struggling with self-doubt. One of the things that I do is I try to ask myself as many times as I can to do that scanning. What is good? What am I grateful for? What is good? What am I grateful for? So I'll use this week as an example. I really did not do a great job at maintaining a good sleep schedule. I'm in my glasses for a reason. Very often, if you catch me in my glasses on this podcast, it's because your girl is tired. And I know you can see it in my face, okay? And so my brain wants to beat me up about that. It wants to, make me feel guilty about it. And so I have been asking myself a lot this week, trying to push that back. Okay, I know you're tired, but what's good and what are you grateful for? Okay. Well, it's good that people seem to be really enjoying this podcast, right? I've had a viral moment this week, which is amazing. I'm also super grateful that my best friend's son is staying at my place for a while because he's super helpful. He's great company. I can see him growing. We're having a really good opportunity to build a stronger bond, and that means a lot to me. I'm grateful that I have the luxury of being able to track my sleep habits so that I actually know that I did not sleep well, because some of us don't have, the tools and resources to do that, right? So I'm grateful for that. I think it's good that I figured out how to actually take a vacation this year. I thought I wasn't going to be able to do it. Business has been really slow, and I just didn't think I could, financially make that decision responsibly, and it's going to happen. And I think that that's good, right? Now, when I'm going through this list, of answers, I don't write my answers down because my goal isn't to give, myself an actual physical list. It's more about developing the brain habit of doing the scanning, right? But if you want, you can journal to these questions. I just happen to not be a big journal person in this season. I'm about trying to practice the doing, right? So that my brain gets in the habit of automatically, as soon as something kind of kicks in, I have that moment that's like, okay, but wait, what's good? And what are you grateful for? Like, kind of like it just automatically happens. So I don't journal it, but if you want to, you can. Now, there's a second thing that you can do to kind of help you to see, the good in the world and allow yourself to have a better opportunity to receive it. Because the thing is, seeing it is one thing, receiving good from others is a little bit different. And I'm not going to lie to you, I struggle with this, allowing myself to receive good without deflecting or minimizing is a little bit tough. I have a hard time sometimes being perceived, partially because I'm a huge introvert, but, generally when I am celebrated or I feel very seen or I'm the center of attention, it makes me feel so, so awkward, except when I'm teaching. When I'm teaching, I'm fine. But like, if I'm just like randomly the center of attention, because it's like, I don't know my birthday, don't ever send the birthday people to sing at my table. I am going to crawl under it and die. Like, I can't. Okay. It's too much. I feel awkward in my body. I feel like I'm just going to fold into myself. But I've learned to practice a few things when good is showing up, when it is celebration time, when it is, people trying to express gratefulness or give compliments or whatever. There are some things that I have to practice doing, even though I feel a little weird doing them. The first is I accept compliments full out. I'm not going to undercut it. I'm not going to minimize it. So, if someone says, hey, I love your haircut, I'm going to say, you know what? Thank you for that. I really appreciate it, without rushing to offer them some compliment back or saying something like, man, this haircut situation's been really tough. And like, I'm not doing all that anymore. I am intentionally just saying, thank you for that. I really appreciate it, instead of minimizing or, forcing a reply that shrinks it. Okay. Takes a lot of practice, but I'm working on it. The other thing is I try not to rush past my wins. So I used to see everything as like a box to check. Like, okay, I made this much money. I want to make this much. I have this job. I want to have that job. I've traveled here. I want to go there. Everything was very much a check the box kind of way of living. And I didn't savor a lot, yeah, that's the best way to put it. I didn't savor a lot. I would do things and they would get done. And then I was off to the next thing. And I have no idea even where I was rushing to. Because like, let me tell you candidly, like, this is your life. So like, if you're rushing, you're just rushing through your own life. Like, live, like live it, right? I am living life right now. There's no reason to rush at all. But let me tell you, since I've been intentionally making note of the good, I've uncovered so much about my past experiences that contributes to who I am and how I show up and what makes me really great at what I do for work. So now I'm more conscious, right? I'm more cognizant of like savoring those good things. Like, yo, you're good at that. Like, this is a win. This is something big. Your TED Talk has over 500,000 views. That's a win, And so I'm doing a better job at that. It takes practice, but I want to encourage you that when you have a win, make a point to mark it and intentionally pause to literally feel the gratitude for the win. You'll notice gratitude is a little bit of a theme in this podcast too, because gratitude, it isn't just something you feel, it's something you have to practice. Like, you have to be intentional about it. And when you do, that gratitude, that gratefulness programs your mind to look for more of it. And we've talked about this in a podcast episode before, but like, do it on purpose, because you get to grow the muscle to do it better, and you'll feel better. You'll have more joy. You'll have more access to that, ooh, life is good feeling. Now, I do want to honor that there are definitely times when, we just can't see any of the good, for whatever reason. Things are tough. We're hangry, we haven't slept, whatever. And you just can't see any of the good. First, if you are consistently in a position where you can't identify any good, like none at all, I do think it's important for me to just drop right here that you might want to consider getting some support in the form of a therapist or a counselor that can help you work through the space that you're in, because there has to be some yin and the yang for life to work. And it's okay to need professional help to help create that. And so if you are struggling like in a long-term way and an ongoing way, absolutely tap into some resources to make sure that you're getting support. But if you're having like temporary moments of like, I can't find the good in this moment and it just feels trash, remember that sometimes the bad feels louder. It's just what it is, right? But also that's temporary. It's temporary. And if you have to, you can interrupt the spiral, right? This is how I interrupt the spiral. I anchor myself in what is true. Now, you all already have the smile file, right? Reminds you of what is true, okay? But another tactic that I use when my mind is consumed with negative thoughts, I kind of give them the attention they want. Like I'm like, okay, let me acknowledge that, right? So step one, I might acknowledge it. I'm feeling really anxious about getting on a plane again. My last flight was super bumpy. We had this really chaotic landing. I was concerned we were going to hit another plane. I don't even know if I want to get on another plane. Like I'm feeling super anxious about it. So that would be my acknowledgement. Number two, I name what is also true, okay? But also I've flown, like thousands of times, right? Like this is just one flight. It's still one of the safest ways to get around. Flying is still pretty safe. It's, maybe I should not flip out and make this such a big deal. All right. And then I add another layer. I add one good thing from the day. And also, I have a really nice outfit that I'm gonna wear today when I go to the airport so I can travel really comfortably. And I'm excited about that. Okay. So this is a really simple example, but the steps would essentially be, let me acknowledge the thing that's negative, that's consuming me, that I'm feeling anxious about, whatever. Let me acknowledge it. The second step is I want to make sure I name what's also true about that thing. Okay. And then the third step is I'm going to add one intentionally good thing that's happening in that moment connected to it. Like connected to whatever I'm struggling with, there's got to be one good thing connected to it. And I do that. The trick with these little like and also phrases is that they start to shift your perspective so that you can actually open your aperture and see what else is happening, right? And when you can see what else is happening, you're better able to get to what else is happening that's good. Okay. And that gives your brain space to like level set, like whatever it is that feels bad, it gives it the space to go, okay, well, that doesn't feel great. But guess what? We do also have some good. Finding the good isn't about erasing the bad. Like that's not the goal. We kind of need bad. Honestly, it's how we know what good even is. But finding the good does remind you that the bad isn't the whole picture. And you have to keep an eye out for that because as you're practicing you can have whatever you want process, you got to know that it's not going to show up exactly how you pictured in your head. So you got to be scanning all the time. What's good? What's good? What am I grateful for? Right? So that you get the opportunity to see it. Now, I know some of y'all are journalers. I have seen the comments. People have sent me long form copies of their notes that they take from this podcast. And so in case that's you, I did write some good questions that I think would be helpful for you to go with this podcast episode. And I will put those in the resources over on humaningwellpodcast.com. Just go there and click resources, or you can go to the show notes and click humaningwellpodcast.com and then go to resources. But I have some questions and I'll share them there as well. So the first question is, what is something small that worked out this week? The second question, what used to be hard for you that feels easier now? Used to be hard, feels easier now. Third question, who or what brought you a moment of joy recently? And I just had a moment of joy run across my brain. So hopefully you had that as you hear this question. Fourth question, what is a version of abundance that you have already experienced? So you know abundance exists, right? Because you've already experienced it. What did that look like? And then the fifth question that you can journal to is, what is a hard thing that you've survived? And how are you better now because of it? Okay, so I gave you that at the top of this episode. It was a hard thing working for these folks who had all this chaotic stuff going on and trying to figure out how to navigate corporate politics. It was tough, but I'm better for it. And I can do the job I do. I can show up for the executives and leaders that I support now because I know that space, right? I figured out, I mastered it, right? I got really good at that. You don't have to pretend everything is good. That's not the goal here. I know I keep saying that, but I just want to make sure we're not slipping off into everything has to be so good. And if my brain isn't seeing that, then something's wrong. No. That's not it. You just need to remember that good exists. Even when your nervous system is flipping out and you're anxious and you're feeling all the things, you just want to know that good is available. It's always available. And it's always, always, always available to you. So this is the final episode in the Get Grounded capsule. Okay, so we did 5 of these. And this is your reminder that the world responds to the way you show up. This entire capsule has been about what you can do to get a different experience in the world. And when you expect good, when you create room for it, when you are intentional about what you want, when you work really hard about making sure that you put your brain and push back against some of the things that neuroscience says our brains will do automatically, you start to notice great things, you start to receive great things, you start to believe in great things. It changes your entire life. That doesn't mean you'll never struggle. Does mean, though, that even when you're struggling, you still have some anchors. And that kind of presence and awareness and willingness to go through the journey is how we human well. All right. So that's the episode. Remember to choose the good, look for the good, and let yourself enjoy it. Okay. I'll be back next week with a new episode. I have no idea what it's going to be about, so I can't even give you a preview. But until then, take care of yourself and remember you deserve good things and they're finding their way to you. See you next week.